guess we're going to be live. So let's have a little applause. There we go. We're here today. Yes, here we go. All right. Yeah. That's a little fun thing I found on StreamYard. It's like, oh, look, that's some new stuff they've given us. Nice. Now I'm going to get back over here to YouTube and let me pull this back up over here that we were looking at yesterday. Did we stop in the middle of part 2? Is that what we did? I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let me go back to, okay, let's type it in. Okay. Dr. Phil, part 2. And we'll just go back over there. All right. Okay. Oh, we did right there. Yay, it's right there. Perfect. All right. Whoops. All right. Make this, I think, a little bigger. No, not that big, but yeah. All right. There. Okay, we'll put that over there for right now, and then we'll go back over here and share our screen, and then we'll fix that part. So many different things to have to do. It's craziness. All right, now we'll go back over here. Yes, I'm going to share. Share. Now, more of that. Make it bigger. Oh, yeah, there we go. Now that's better. All right, now we're here. Are we both on? Yeah, we're both here. Great, great. Okay, we'll be ready to start in just a minute, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of things going on, out there with all these different missing kids and stuff, and all of this being upset about this, that, and the other. And you just got to ask yourself, and I know we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but don't they realize that the sheriff's office cannot come out and make comments? They're not going to tell us anything, and they don't owe us anything. And they're also not going to come out, and every time there's a birthday, an anniversary, or they're not going to come out and talk about one child. They have to talk about all of them. You can't just single out one child to be talking about, and then everybody gets upset because Ellie's not mentioning them. Well, I mean, I don't understand why they're so upset. Oh my God, girl, help me! Hey, yeah. Cinderella, hey, you fell asleep. That's okay, girl. We don't care. We're so easy. It's like, watch it whenever you can. That's fine. Hey, Cinderella. So we are just talking about amongst ourselves over here about how upset everybody is that the law enforcement office is not coming out and making all these comments about this one case every time you turn around. And, it's my feeling that they can't come out. Well, they're not going to tell us anything because they don't owe us anything. Number one is right. And number two, they can't just talk about one child. They have to talk about all of them. You can't come out and say, well, so-and-so's birthday passed. So, you have to mention every single one of them that's missing. And there's no way they can do that. What's your thought on that, Cinderella? Let's see what she said. I know she keeps up with it. Yeah. I don't know. I need to put this in here about Dr. Phil while she answers us. Okay, hang on. We had to use our avatar again because if I use my actual camera, all you see is my chest. It's really stupid. I don't know. I got to get a new camera. Maybe Santa Claus will bring me one I can put on top of my new little screen my husband gave me. Because I really do like this. I like this big screen. It makes everything easier to read. Oh, I got compliments of Dr. Phil. Now, come on, dumbass. Okay. I know it's full credit we're going to put. Oh, Lord, get it together. Dr. Phil. All right. Do I have to spell it right? I think I did. Okay. Not and. It's just Dr. Phil. Before we restart this, there was another guy. I don't really know his name, but I watched something he put out this morning, and his father took the life of his mother, and he is some person that also is not the Bello case. It's some other case that I'm not really aware of. And I thought we could go back and look at his comments too, because he talked about this earlier. What is that noise? I need to make sure that this is not trying to, hang on a minute. I'm gonna let this play while I go look at something. Hang on. I think it's trying to pick up the microphone from both.
It's almost like a waiter reciting the specials. It's practice, it's rehearsed. You have to call that into question. Any interrogator, anyone seeking the truth will tell you if something is coming across rote, you want to start questioning that. And one of the first things you want to do is let's go backwards. Let's start in the middle and go, backwards. Let's start in the middle and go forward. Start disrupting their rehearsal and see if you can find inconsistencies.
Take care of that.
Police had a hunch they were far from knowing the whole story. Just 3 days after Paul and Maggie's murders, Alex sat down for his second police interview, and this time back at the Moselle property where the unthinkable had unfolded. Investigators weren't there just to refresh memories and cover old ground. They were there because things weren't adding up. They needed to zero in on the inconsistencies in Alex's story and to see how he would react when the pressure started closing in. Once again, he stuck to the original script. He claimed he ate dinner with his family, dozed off on the couch, then left to visit his ailing mother nearby. And once again, he insisted that he had never gone down to the dog kennels that night. Now, interestingly, there came a moment during that interview when Alec let something slip.
Absolutely.
Something he didn't even seem to realize. In reference to his wife and son, Alec sobbed, saying, quote, "It's just so bad. They did them so bad," unquote. Now, investigators found this intriguing.
Who is they?
Speaking in the tense,
Mm-hmm.
suggesting he already knew the extent of Maggie and Paul's injuries, hinting at some sort of knowledge no innocent bystander would have had. At that point, he shouldn't have known all the forensic details yet, only that they were dead. Still, in the months after Maggie and Paul's murders, investigators moved cautiously. They had their suspicions, of course, but what they needed was solid evidence.
Spit it up a little.
It took over a year, from June of 2021 to July 2022, before Alec Murdaugh was officially charged with double murder. Now, a lot of people were frustrated by this, but let me tell you, prosecutors get one bite at the apple. And if they go too soon, before they have everything nailed down, and they don't get it right, then a perpetrator can walk. So let's look at the key evidence that they assimilated that pointed to Alec. Paul's videos. These were especially damning. Like most young people, Paul was active on social media and often documented his daily life on his phone. Now, videos Paul recorded that day, the day that he was killed, became critical evidence in the case against his father. A Snapchat video Paul took earlier on the evening of his death showed Alec on property wearing different clothes than when police arrived. This suggested that Alec changed outfits after the murders. Even more alarming, a cell phone video Paul recorded at 8:44 p.m. captured Alec's voice at the dog kennels mere moments before the killings. Now remember, he said he had not, on repeated occasions, said he had not been to the dog kennels that day. But now, a cell phone video Paul recorded at 8:44 p.m. had Alec's voice in the background, directly contradicting his repeated alibi, and placed him at the scene of the crime. He's caught in a lie. Cell phone and GPS data. Cell phone records and vehicle GPS contradicted the timeline Alex had provided to police, showing suspicious movements and inconsistencies around the time of the murder. Alex said he was napping, but cell phone data showed he was moving around the Moselle property when Paul's kennel video caught his voice, confirming, again, independent data that he was at the dog kennels. Now, after the murders, Alec flooded Paul's phone with calls and texts, not out of hope, prosecutors would later say, but out of strategy to show that he had no idea his son was already dead. So he's calling him to create a record saying, hey, I'm calling him to chat him up. No, you were calling to create a flurry of phone calls. Meanwhile, data also revealed that Alec's trip to his mother's was shorter than he claimed. The digital evidence shredded his timeline and exposed a man desperate to cover his tracks. It wasn't just one thing that brought Alec Murdaugh down. It was a trail of evidence that told a story he finally just simply could not talk his way out of. Even with mounting proof, the question remained. People just had a hard time wrapping their head around, could a father really execute his wife and son?
We got to stop every once in a while. But I mean, Dr. Phil, he's so right about this. If y'all have a hard time hearing, let me know, because I switched this over to mono to try to get rid of that feedback. We have some weird problem with this. But anyway, if they complain about all these cases, they're not doing anything. But think about what Dr. Phil just said. You get one chance. You don't have the right evidence. You cannot convict the people. Why would you arrest them unless you had the right evidence? Isn't there such thing as a retry? I mean, a lot of these missing kids, even if LE knows something else has happened to these kids, they're not going to tell us. They don't owe that to us, right? But they're not going to arrest anybody until they can prove 100% that this happened to these children at that time and that these people were responsible. I don't know why people get so upset, Sprinkle. Do you?
I just think everybody wants to know everything, and they always think that Ellie's not doing enough.
Yeah,
but they can't share information. They can't comment on things because it jeopardizes the case, and people need to understand that.
Do you think like I do? Cinderella might think the same thing, but do you think like I do that a lot of this stuff that's out here on YouTube that these people are going on and on and on about is basically just interrupting the investigation?
Oh, absolutely.
They're throwing all this stuff out here that's not true, this misinformation that Johnny told Sarah from, Richie over here from another state who lives over in the UK. Come on. How does this... It's ridiculous how far this goes, and I really wish people would realize.
It would be interesting to talk with a law enforcement officer that actually has investigated a big case to see how much information that's come from social media has actually been detrimental to their investigation. Because, if anything comes in, they have to investigate. So how much wasted time are they spending on a lot of this crap that's just coming from these armchair detectives on the internet?
True. And Cinderella says,
I think we've talked about this before. Like the only case that I've seen where social media has actually helped was with Gabby Petito.
Right. That's right. I remember that. I remember talking about that too.
Mm-hmm.
Cinderella says, in her opinion, that this is deliberate. And so I'm going to ask Cinderella, which part is deliberate? Is it the fact that they're not talking about it? Or is it deliberate that people are spreading misinformation? Or is it deliberate that people, get themselves involved, not realizing what they're actually doing? Which one is it? Because we all know. Yeah.
Then we all know so much of what people do on social media is for clicks and views.
Oh, yeah. It is. I don't really want to be part of that crowd. That's why I really don't want to, do true crime, and I really don't want to go up all the time and talk about these missing kids and stuff, because to me, there is misinformation, but there's also helping spread the word. I get that. But I think when you go on there every single day repeating the same thing, and every channel repeats the same thing, that is not spreading the word. Hey, Leslie, how are you doing? Oh, Leslie, I did not find your message. So, how is your foot? Is it broken? She had to go to the doctor the other day. Leslie hurt herself.
Oh, no.
Okay. Cinderella says, no, they don't, with respect, they don't investigate that ransom. Allegedly, they are trying to stop. See, Cinderella, let me explain. I'm going to give y'all my opinion, and we're all entitled to our own opinion, and y'all can think however you want to. I'm fine with it. And it's okay if it's not broken. Thank goodness. All right, Leslie. Thank goodness. That's good news. Because Christmas broken foot, no way. That's terrible. But in my opinion, the reason why LE does not look at a lot of the things that's out there on the internet is because they already know exactly what happened, but they don't have the one thing they need to make the arrest because, again, it has to be solid enough that they're going to be able to get a conviction in a court of law. And I think that they are. That's why they don't. It's not that they're not investigating it. It's just that they're not going to follow. In my opinion, I don't know. This is just what I think. They're not going to follow things that they know is going nowhere. And so they just, that's just how I look at it. Now, I don't know. I mean, and a lot of people say, well, so-and-so said this, and they showed me this, and that was the receipt of this. But you know what? Here's the thing. These things are not always exactly as they're shown. Just like the other day, I found where this sheriff does not own $1 million home. He does not own that property. He has never owned that property. So, I totally see this. I was thinking you're talking about spirit. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's okay, Cinderella. Yes, thank you so much. Yes, I'm sorry. No, we're actually talking about just the whole thing and why law enforcement ignores some of the things that they see on the internet. That's what that is. Anyway, so So I just want to talk about that for a minute because here's another thing that happens that people don't even realize they're doing. And I know they're upset, and I understand that. But when you are over there just talking about, calling the law enforcement everything but a damn dog, they're not going to talk to you because you've already put out that you don't respect them, right? And I think that doesn't really help the case either. But we'll go back and keep on listening to Mr. Murdaugh here. I know he thought he was going to get away with this. I know he did.
Of course he did.
What would be his motive?
In the room.
Well,
Right.
investigators began peeling back the layers of Alec Murdaugh's life, and they found that his finances were in a state of absolute disaster. They didn't just find a few bad checks or missed payments. They found a house of cards built on lies, theft, and betrayal, all running through his own personal injury law firm. It turns out Alec Murdaugh had been embezzling millions of dollars from his law firm and from his clients. These clients were grieving families, people who came to him for legal guidance during the most challenging, darkest times in their lives. He pocketed money meant for widows, orphans, accident victims. It was outrageously conniving behavior at best and pure evil at worst. Alec wasn't just living above his means. He was robbing the very people he was sworn to protect. He was a complete and total fraud and a thief to boot. And by the time Maggie and Paul were murdered, the walls were closing in fast. Lawsuits were brewing. A wrongful death suit from Mallory Beach's family was closing in, threatening to expose Alec Murdaugh's hidden financials. A critical hearing was just days away. The truth was about to be dragged from the dark into the light. And if that weren't bad enough, Alec's law firm was catching on to his misdeeds. In fact, just hours before Maggie and Paul were murdered, the chief financial officer of Alec's firm confronted him about a whopping $792,000 in missing settlement money. $750,000 in missing settlement money. Suffice it to say, things were going downhill for Alec Murdaugh at breakneck speed. Prosecutors would later argue that this was the motive behind it all, with disgrace, financial ruin, and criminal exposure closing in. Alec chose destruction over accountability. Under mounting pressure, they said, he staged the ultimate diversion. A brutal family tragedy meant to buy him sympathy and shift attention away from his unraveling world. Now, let me call time out here. Let's talk about pattern and practice. You think, well, really? This was all deflection? Let's go back to the night of the murder. What was the first thing he did when he talked to the authorities? Deflect, deflect, deflect. He started talking about guns. He started talking about another suspect. He started deflecting attention away from himself. And when things were closing in and things were getting ready to collapse on him, he creates another diversion. Deflect, 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 attention away from him. It seems like an MO.
I'm sorry.
He was a little late, because by this time, nothing could stop the collapse of the empire and family name he had spent a lifetime building. But the theatrics weren't over, not by a long shot. Just 3 months after Maggie and Paul's murders, as law enforcement quietly continued to build their case, he called 911 again. This time, claiming he had been shot in the head while changing a tire on a rural road.
Okay, we're going to stop for a minute and talk about this. You know what, Cinderella? Cinderella says, I worry about how Sebastian gets treated after we're all online making scenarios. It just makes me uneasy. It makes me uneasy too. Because, you know, it started out with people being accusatory toward the parents. Let's think about this for a second. Hold on. Now, we have had a certain group. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to be ugly today. I'm just going to say it exactly how I see it. But we have a certain group that started out with blaming parents. Oh, they were so sure, making these ugly pretend billboards that were not really out there. They were just on X, just to be ugly. They were just ugly, but they weren't real, right? A lot of the things that were put on X they're never real. They're just the X keyboard warrior over there, just putting whatever he wanted to out there, and it just kind of made it look bad. Well, the next thing that happened was, okay, well, then they're going to come out and blame the green hoodie. It was the mom and the green hoodie together did this. All right, well, that didn't work. So the next thing they did was they came out with, oh, well, there's a ransom note. There's a ransom note. Well, that didn't work either. I mean, then the next thing was, oh, well, he was over in Tel Aviv. We've got these pictures of some random child that they put out there. Really looked nothing like, him. And then, it's like they just kept putting out all these different scenarios. One group put out all these different scenarios while LA remained quiet. It could not be all 5 of those. You can't just keep changing the scenario to or the narrative to fit whatever you want it to be that week while you do that. I think made this. I think how his dad intended for this to help really turned into a huge hinder. That's what I'm going to say about it. It's what, and I wonder all the time, what if Sebastian sees any of this? What is he going to think? Poor child. Well, I mean, what is he going to think? What do you think, Cinderella? I mean, sorry, Sprinkle. I'm looking at Cinderella talking to Sprinkle. Sorry.
It's at the end of the day, my opinion is the only person or the only people that deserve information are the families. But people have this sense now, because we have the FOIAs and we have this and we have that we are all entitled to this. We are not. It's not our business. At the end of the day, none of this is our business. This is these families' real life situations. And if these people would put themselves in the positions of the families and the victims, I can guarantee you, if the stuff that they're doing was happening to them, they would come unglued.
They sure would.
They would not like it. They would not like it. They would be the first ones screaming how unfair it was, and how things are getting jeopardized, and how this might jeopardize the case. It's not our business. Of course, we all want to know, because we're just human and we want to understand. We want to know all the dirt, quote unquote. But it's not our business. It's not our business.
You're right. It's not going to help find that child either, and that's the problem.
No.
And that's the real big problem here. And so Cinderella, and so they're talking in chat about, I wonder how many times he did insurance fraud. Let me tell you something. He's done insurance fraud many, many times. Many times. Okay. In fact, let me tell you about this one, y'all, because this is not something that I don't think was made very public. But, okay, so, Buster was kicked out of the University of South Carolina Law School in 2021 for low grades and alleged plagiarism, right? His father, Alex, later paid a lawyer to try to get him readmitted, but Buster never returned to law school. He tried to pay $60,000 to let his child back into law school, whether he deserved to be there or not. Isn't that amazing? So That is how far he would go to fix whatever these kids did. Well, let's go back and keep listening. God.
At first, it sounded like another sinister attempt to target the Murdaugh family. But the story fell apart almost immediately. In truth, Alec had staged the entire thing. It almost was like slapstick comedy. How harebrained this scheme of his was, if it wasn't such a dark plan. It turns out Alec had hired a former client and distant cousin, Curtis, aka Eddie Smith, to shoot and kill him so that Buster, Alec's surviving oldest son, could collect a $10 million life insurance payout. But the plan was reckless. The wound was superficial. Eddie ended up only grazing Alec's head with a bullet, and the lies these two had cooked up were quickly exposed. Under pressure, both Alec and Eddie confessed that it wasn't an attack at all. It was a clumsy, desperate suicide for hire scheme. Another frantic move from a man who would rather stage his own death than face Judgment Day. Again, a desperate deflection to avoid accountability. Narcissistic individuals will do anything to escape shame, even fake their own deaths. It's absolute manipulation to the end. Even in crisis, Alec tried to position himself as the victim, not the perpetrator. The night of the killings, it's deflection. Don't look at me, look over here. Let's talk about the guns. Let's talk about another suspect. The killings themselves, deflect away from his crimes against his clients and embezzlement from his law firm. Then when it's closing in, he's going to be prosecuted. Well, let's create another crisis. Look away from all those charges. I'm out here getting shot in the head. It's always something. He tried to position himself as victim, not the perpetrator. This stage shooting shows that Alec's belief that he could create confusion and control the narrative, even at the risk of getting shot and killed. I guess he thought he could control the narrative from beyond the grave if it had been successful and he had been killed. If others believed he was murdered, then Alec wouldn't be viewed as a criminal pariah. He could then possibly be perceived as a poor father who lost his wife and son and then was tragically gunned down himself. It would have given credence to Alec's earlier shared theory about someone being out to get the family. If he thought, look, they're going to get me, so at least I'll go out as a martyr. Now, Alec's pending ruin ties directly to his committing familicide. When someone's carefully crafted public image crumbles, men like Alec may lash out violently to regain control. For narcissists, family members are often seen as extensions of self, disposable when they no longer serve this fabricated image. Long before Alec Murdaugh was charged with the murders of Maggie and Paul, he was already behind bars. But not for killing his family. It wasn't the murders that put him in handcuffs first. It was the botched suicide plot and the trail of stolen money. On September 16th of 21, Murdaugh was arrested for insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and filing a false police report tied to the staged roadside shooting. After completing a stint in rehab for an opioid addiction, more on these troubles of his later, he was arrested again on October 14th, 2021, this time for stealing insurance settlement funds. By the time investigators were ready to charge him with the murders of his wife and child, Alec was already sitting in jail, his reputation shattered, and his lies exposed. So when they finally named him as the alleged killer in July of 22, it wasn't a dramatic manhunt. He wasn't on the run. He was served with these new warrants inside a jail cell that he already called home. In the end, the fall of Alec Murdaugh didn't come with a bang. It came with a slow, relentless unraveling. One deception after another, after another, after another. But this wasn't the end of the saga. A courtroom drama straight out of a suspense novel would soon commence, and even more revelations. On our next episode, it's the dramatic conclusion to one of the most bizarre and twisted cases we have ever covered. Because Alec Murdaugh finally goes to trial.
Okay, I'm going to come back over
Why
here.
do
For a second.
you
We'll
think
find-
he
we'll find
started
out.
embezzling all that money?
You know how long he'd been doing that?
I know,
It
but
was
that's a.
like-
I mean, I know their lifestyle was very extravagant. Obviously, I
Mhm.
mean, all the properties they had and the money that they spent, but the amount of money that he embezzled, I think, far exceeds the lifestyle they had. Do you? I just am curious of like why he started doing that. I've never
I
heard.
would
For
like to know
hatching
too.
criminal schemes, convinced her sons Tony
But-
Oh, I thought we were done. Sorry.
No. I was just trying to switch it over so we could play it when we were ready to get started. Yeah, I don't know. But he had been doing this for years. Here's the question.
I mean,
though.
was he not making money as an attorney? Was he not?
I think
Was
his
he not
base
making
salary.
money?
His base salary was like, I believe they said $250,000 a year, plus a percentage of these cases that they would
I
win.
was going to say he had to, because he had to be part of. I would assume he had to have been part owner in that law firm. He had to be
Right.
getting residuals from everybody. Maybe it just
And they were-
agreed. I don't know.
Yeah, they were. They were. But one of the things that was happening is he started, and how he started doing. And see, somebody had to help him. There is no way he did this by himself because
Well,
they-
that's where the housekeeper talks about the cleaners. That's where the
Well,
cleaners
not only
come in.
that, but the stealing at the law firm.
Oh yeah. Well. Yeah.
See, he created this other forge account, that they had this other account that they would put this money in, and then at the end of the year they would split this money up. But first they paid all the bills from the law firm. Well, he started another account and labeled it the same thing, and he would go deposit that money over there. But my question is, how did nobody at that law firm not notice that money was not going into that account? He was not the bookkeeper of
Yeah.
the law firm. So
Well, and
somebody
two,
knew.
would I totally interrupted you? I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
Don't you think his wife wasn't stupid. Maggie was not stupid. Don't you think she must not have seen all of that money? Because don't you think she would have said, where are you getting all this money? Where is this money coming from?
See,
If
that's
I
what
was a
think, too.
wife, if I was a wife and I would see millions and millions of dollars coming into my account, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars coming into my account, and I knew that my husband made X amount of dollars every month, I would be questioning it. I would be like, what's going on? Where's this coming from?
That's right. I would too.
And as a mother, she wants to protect her. She wants to protect her children. So she's going to want to make sure that nothing is happening that's going to jeopardize her lifestyle or her children. So she's going to want to investigate what the heck is going on here.
See, I agree with that.
I don't know. That's just the way, strictly my opinion, but she doesn't strike me as the type that was like, oh, go get as much money as you can so we can go spend as much money as we can. She didn't strike me as that type of woman.
Right. Let's talk about Gloria Satterfield for a minute. Now, the housekeeper that supposedly fell down the stairs and had a severe head injury and 12 broken ribs. The dog tripped her. Now, she would work for them for years. I think 20 years.
Yeah,
I think.
since those kids were babies. Those kids were babies.
Anyway, somebody sent me something. Sorry, guys. What in the world did she know? What was the reason for what happened to her? What did she know that was possibly going to come out? I mean, I don't know. I'm just wondering about this.
You don't get those type of injuries by falling down some stairs.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No, that was
No.
no.
Mm-mm. Something made no sense at all on that one. So,
I mean, and you would think if he was smart, he would have paid some of these people, like pay her children, pay some of these other victims their money, so he doesn't become exposed to this. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
pay some of it back, maybe not all of what these people are owed, but give them something that they're owed, so there's not the big red flag sticking out. Because I'm sorry, if I go to a lawsuit and I'm with my attorney and my attorney says, okay, we expect $50,000 from this lawsuit. And my attorney
Right.
at the end of the day says, and we win, everything's right. And my attorney says, okay, there's no money. I'm not going to just be like, oh, okay, well, bummer. I'm going to be like, what happened? Where's the money?
That's right. Where is the money? But you know, he just took advantage of these people that he knew would trust him 100% and not really ask the right questions. It's like he picked and chose who he took advantage of. So let's go back. We'll watch some more. The whole thing shocks me is how long he got away with this, really. It's unbelievable, actually.
He and his mother, Maggie, were found savagely gunned down on the family estate. Then came the twist. No one saw this coming. Alec Murdaugh, the powerful family patriarch, was arrested not only for decades of fraud, but for the cold-blooded murder of his own wife and son. But the fight for law enforcement to put Murdaugh behind bars was nowhere near over. There was real concern leading up to Alec Murdaugh's trial that his family's influence in the Low Country could sway the jury. After all, the Murdaughs had held power in that region for nearly a century. During jury selection, many potential jurors were dismissed for having personal connections to the family or strong opinions about the case. Even Judge Clifton Newman admitted finding an impartial jury in that town was no easy task. There was a heightened sense of uncertainty surrounding the trial's possible outcome. Despite the evidence, many people weren't sure which way the verdict would fall. The judge ordered the removal of a portrait of Alec's grandfather, Randolph Buster Murdaugh Jr., a former scholar whose image had long presided over the courtroom. Just like the Murdaugh name, the portrait came down, an effort to strip the room of any lingering influence from the family's powerful legacy and ensure, as best they could, a fair trial. But legacies run deep, particularly in that part of the country. It was January 23rd, 2023, when the proceedings officially began. From the start, it was clear that this trial wasn't just about 2 lives lost. Tragic as that may have been, it was about the shocking unraveling of a man and a family legacy that was now continuing in real time. News trucks lined the streets, reporters jostled for space outside the Colleton County Courthouse. Social media lit up with speculation, and armchair detectives weighed in on every move. It's not every day you see a case this complex with a figure as polarizing as Alec Murdaugh at its center. The prosecution, well, they came out swinging. Lead attorney Creighton Waters painted Alec Murdaugh as a manipulative man, so cornered by his lies and mounting financial ruin that he executed his own wife and son in cold blood. The state leaned heavily on circumstantial evidence, damning financial records, and that cell phone video, the one that placed Alec at the murder scene just moments before the killings, despite his repeated claims to the contrary. This man was no grieving husband, no grieving father, the prosecution alleged. He was the not-so-criminal mastermind behind the brutal slayings and cover-up. But the defense, led by Dick Harpootlian, pushed back with equal force. He painted Alec as a heartbroken man, reeling from an unimaginable double loss. A flawed investigation, Alec's team argued, had zeroed in on him while overlooking key gaps. There was no murder weapon, no blood on Alec's clothes, no forensic smoking gun. They claimed that Alec's arrest had been the result of a rush to judgment, fueled by public pressure and a media frenzy. This was a fascinating trial to watch, with a cast of many characters. But it was simultaneously devastating. One of the most chilling moments came when Dr. Ellen Reamer, the autopsy expert, took the stand, and what she delivered wasn't just testimony. It was a gut punch to everyone listening in that courtroom. She laid bare the gruesome reality of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh's murder and their final moments. Graphic testimony that exposed the true horror of their violent deaths and the destruction inflicted on their bodies. Now, I don't want to make anybody sick. I don't want to get needlessly graphic here, but to appreciate
Trigger
the
warning,
gravity
trigger warning.
of what had been done, you do need to understand what took place. Let's talk about Paul Murdaugh. This is the son.
His own son.
Dr. Reamer testified that Paul was shot twice, not once, but twice with a shotgun. The first blast tore through his chest and arm, causing significant internal injuries. The second shotgun blast entered Paul's left shoulder and neck area, traveled upward into his head, and ultimately blew out the top of his skull. Dr. Reamer described that shot, as you can imagine, to be instantly fatal. Dr. Reamer noted there was no soot or stimpling, which means the shotgun was fired from at least 3 feet away, not at close range. The forensic analysis suggests Paul likely saw his killer in those final moments, but was taken by surprise and had no time to defend himself. Now, to appreciate this, you have to put yourself in Paul's position for a minute. Imagine seeing your father pointing a shotgun towards you, and then he pulls the trigger not once, but twice. This is the man who was there the day you were born. And now he watches as you take your last ragged breath. You have to wonder what sense of confusion, what sense of betrayal, what sense of absolute shock and dismay was going through this young man's thoughts at that time. And then there's Maggie Murdaugh. Maggie was gunned down with a different weapon, a high-powered 300 blackout rifle. Now, it begs the question, why 2 different weapons?
Okay, do y'all remember in the Lori Vallow trial and the Alex Cox? Remember what type of gun he had? It was also one of these blackout guns, exactly the same kind of gun. How about that? So I mean, that's a high-powered rifle, but I don't care what any of these people did. Nobody deserved to have their life taken like that, and especially not by their father. And I don't know how in the world he can look at anybody and try to claim he did not do that when he is clearly heard on the video saying, Bubba, come here. You know, how in the world? It makes no sense. I always think about what their victims think about. Yeah, I do too, because they're standing there looking at somebody they thought loved them, they thought cared about them, they thought would protect them, but they're taking their life. They don't even realize their life is being taken until it's too late. They can't run. They're like, hey, Dad, what are you doing? Oh, hell, you accidentally shot me. I mean, imagine him thinking that, because it was just a superficial wound, and he would have lived had he not taken that second shot. Okay, the poor child. How does Buster talk to his dad at all? That's what I want to know. That was your mother and your brother. How do you... All right, we'll keep going, but it makes me so...
Yeah, sick. I often wonder what Buster thinks now. If he's totally done with his dad, if he believed he killed them, because I know at first he didn't, but then I thought I had heard that he accepted the fact that his dad did it.
You know what? We can look at...
Yeah, I often wonder, but I mean, look at Barry Morphew's daughters.
Yeah,
they stand behind him. Look at Chad's children. They stand behind him.
Does it make sense? No.
I just don't understand. I just don't.
I always wanted to know okay, we love our parents, yes, but what makes a child like that stick to the one parent they have left? Knowing the other one could have or may have or more than likely have taken their parents' life.
Yeah. I mean, I can see it happening with a small child, a young child, but not adult children.
Right. They know better.
That would be like Colby still being okay with Lori. Can you imagine Colby being all buddies with Lori?
No. I'm so glad he was able to get away from it and heal, you know. That just there has to be some type of mental illness that comes, or some trauma response that comes from this, that causes them to cling to their other parent, even knowing deep down that they did this.
I mean, I could see in the beginning the denial factor being there, wanting to deny it. But when things continually be put in your face as to what really happened, you have to, one would think that you would eventually be like, you know what, I can't deny this anymore. I can't.
That's right. I mean, okay, we'll keep going, but I mean, it's really so shocking.
The prosecution argued that 2 different guns were used in the murders of Paul and Maggie to make the killings appear as if they were carried out by multiple assailants, potentially throwing off investigators. The first 2 shots struck Maggie's lower body, forcing her to bend or collapse. One traveled upward into her brain as she lay helpless. The final bullet fired in the back of her head. The angle didn't lie. The shooter moved as he fired, closing in with deadly precision. Now, the people in the courtroom, whether they were fans of Murdaugh or not, even though Reamer's testimony was clinical in delivery, certainly not melodramatic, but it shook the room. One juror covered her mouth, visibly disturbed. Alec wept as his family's autopsy photos were shown.
Really?
But were those tears of grief or a desperate performance from a man on trial for his life? Obviously, the defense has to deal with this, right? So they're pushing back hard. They tried to create doubt, suggesting alternate angles, even a possible close-range shot. But Dr. Reamer never wavered. Her conclusion was firm. These weren't frantic, chaotic killings. Coming up, it takes a certain kind of demented thinking to kill your own family.
We're going to skip past these commercials that he does, or these where he
Most of
offers
us have
them.
heard of the fight or flight and the freeze reaction, but there's a fourth out.
Fawning is a relational trauma response
minute.
where we unconsciously appease or caretake in order to lessen the harm.
You silence your own needs just to keep the peace.
Often these patterns, they stem in childhood.
What are some warning signs?
The Dr. Phil podcast.
I think that is a huge deal. Available on your favorite podcast app.
Okay.
Subscribe and follow.
Listen.
These shots were deliberate and fired from a distance. Look, you're talking about a whole different situation here than any other murder, any other killings that law enforcement ever deals with. You're talking about family annihilators. It takes a certain kind of demented thinking to kill your own family, to shoot your own mate, your own offspring. Family annihilators rarely act out of impulse. It's very seldom that they just jump up and do this in a fit of rage or anger. These murders are often carefully planned, with perps selecting dates, choosing weapons, and crafting misleading narratives. They create alibis. They do all sorts of things because they think this through. They choose their timing. They choose everything with forethought. Firearms are the most frequent weapon of choice, and these killings typically occur in the family home. Many perpetrators die by suicide shortly after the murder, suggesting a final tragic attempt to control the narrative. While many family annihilators do end their own lives, those who choose not to often display traits like narcissism, a desire for control, or a deep-seated fear of death. Their decision to live can reveal as much about their psyche as their decision to kill. Those of you that have followed me for a long time will remember the work that we did here on the case involving Chris Watts, the man who murdered his pregnant wife and 2 young daughters, all to start a new life without the burdens of his old one. It was a chilling act of familicide, driven by selfish desires. And so you ask, well, who does this? I've had so many people over the years, when something tragic like this happens, they'll say to me, What kind of people do this? When people say that to me, it's not rhetorical. They mean, really, who does this? And I can tell you the motivations vary, but it's almost always some form of escape. Specific motivations can include financial collapse. They're trying to escape the burden of digging themselves into a huge hole. Now, Alec feared a looming financial crisis. It was coming, and he knew it. He had millions and millions of dollars in debt, and he had been embezzling from client accounts and rerouting money and misappropriating funds. All of this was unraveling around him.
Yeah, he would have never
threatening to
recovered
destroy
financially.
his careful.
You're right. I don't think he would have either. But you know, Dr. Phil's got, that's an interesting thing he's talking about, is these people that actually can, family annihilators, wanting some escape from whatever it is that they're doing, right? Chris Watts. But what I wonder about these people, and you know, y'all know that I've always wondered about the psyche of somebody who can take the life of a family member or anybody. I always wonder, what in the world makes them think differently than we do? Now, we know they're psychopaths, we know they're sociopaths, we know they're narcissistic, we know all these things, but there's something else that's kind of deep rooted in there that makes them think they are going to be able to walk away from this and nobody's going to know or notice, and life just goes on. What in the world is that? Because,
Right?
I'm telling you, I can't even, I would like to know. But we're never going to know because they're never going to tell us that. Nobody's ever going to answer this. Nobody's ever going to tell us, okay, yeah, I thought I was going to get away with it because.
Well, I think with Chris Watts, because he had such a reputation to the kind of guy he was, you know, real relaxed, real loving, family man. I think he really thought that his reputation was going to save him, that they would have never, ever even thought that he could have been the one who did it.
You think Alex thought that too? Thought, well, his reputation would save him because he's just a good old country boy, a family man?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, he had such a grandiose sense of himself. I think he felt like he was untouchable.
Just like Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. Think they're untouchable.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's truly shocking how people can do these things. Here we go.
Crafted image. And there's almost always a sense of grandiosity and
There it
entitlement.
is.
Alec had long operated with a sense of untouchability, using his influence to bend the rules. I mean, he thought, look, I'm not a lawyer, I'm the lawyer. I'm the one that goes in and handles things for people. I'm the one that goes into court and manipulates the system. And when that power was threatened, he may have felt cornered because his own partners were coming at him and asking questions. You're commingling funds. You're taking awards that were won on behalf of your clients and keeping them for yourself. And people are asking questions. This is all going to come out. Yeah, he may have felt cornered. If he didn't, he truly was a narcissist, because if he thought he could do what he was doing and survive that, he was totally out of touch with reality. So maybe this was all distraction, but he thought he could lash out to protect his name. You think, are these people mentally and emotionally unstable? Well,
Hell yeah.
would a sane person do what these family annihilators do? Now, Alec was never formally diagnosed with erratic behavior or addiction struggles, stress reactions, but it was clear that mounting pressures could have contributed to a distorted sense of reality. And he was clearly isolating himself, clearly in a sense of desperation, living a double life. He was stealing and embezzling and secreting all of these behaviors. This is all in secret. And this world was closing in, with trusted friends turning away, family members growing distant as these secrets started to be discovered and unraveled. They oftentimes have this twisted sense of protection. In the darkest corners of a desperate mind, he may have convinced himself that ending his family's suffering was a twisted form of mercy, that if he kept them from going through the humiliation that he was bringing down, that he was saving them in some way. I know that sounds unbelievable, but narcissists look at this only from their point of view. He could well have been telling himself, they're going to go through humiliation, they're going to be outcast, they're going to be living with the burden of everything that I've done. I'll save them that suffering. Like, I'll fix this for them. They have no idea what's coming. This is an act of mercy on my part. And they always find a way that they're the victim. Facing exposure and disgrace, Alex may have felt dragged down by the very family he had spent his life trying to protect and elevate. So maybe he thought, look, I've done all
You
this to
said
try to
Little Red.
maintain this lifestyle. If it wasn't for them, I'd have never had to do all of this. And so he twists this.
Remember, okay, that logic right there that he's given us. Well, I'm just going to spare my family. This way they don't have to be embarrassed, blah, blah. Was he also thinking, well, I know my son, Paul, is going to go to prison for the boat wreck for a long time. So I don't want that to happen to him. So I'll just do this instead. It's not fun. None of it's funny, but if you're thinking like, well, we can't.
I think Paul began to be a burden to him.
Right.
You know, he began to like you said, destroy his reputation, bring what's the word I'm looking for? Shame to the family. I think it began to be a lot for him with Paul.
Well, and Buster too, because Buster got kicked out of law school for plagiarism and low grades.
Yeah.
I mean, they had planned Buster's life. He was going to go into the firm. He's going to be part of the group, and now that's not happening. So he's got both children are just not turning out the way they were supposed to turn out. They're not what he expected or wanted.
Right.
You know, and then you've got okay, and Maggie. Now they've talked about this a little bit. Some people say it's not true, but some people say it is true. She was actually living at the beach house. She was not living at Moselle with him. He might
She
come over
had
every
went
once
to
in a while.
see. She had went to see an attorney, from what I understand.
She was planning on doing something about this.
Yeah,
About
she
leaving.
had visited. She had visited an attorney a couple of weeks prior to her death.
You know, he had to know that she was thinking about that. I mean, what if he thought, oh no, she's going to file for divorce and they're going to start digging in my records and I'm going to be in trouble. But
Right.
I mean, think about all the different parts. It's never okay what he did. I'm never going to say it's okay. But can you see how all of this would build up on him? And he just like, I think he planned it, but I think it also was a very quick plan, like not months, but like within weeks, he planned this. That's why it didn't go very well, right? Hang on. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, but the whole thing too, if he was embarrassed by what was going to happen, why wasn't Buster involved?
That's what I want to know.
Why didn't he do it at a time when all three of them were there and took them all out?
You know, I wanted to know that same question. I have that same question. Why didn't he invite Buster over there and take him out too? What was the what is between them that is very different from Paul and Maggie?
Mm-hmm.
That's weird. It's weird. Here we go.
It's around his mind where he resents them. So there's all kinds of distorted thinking, and you pour drugs on top of that. Boy, a lot of bizarre thinking can seem like a good idea at the time. Let's move away from him for a minute and talk briefly about other noteworthy witnesses who testified during this case. Now, Rogan Gibson, Paul's best friend and a critical witness to the prosecution's case, is worth taking a minute to talk about.
Yeah.
Gibson told jurors he could clearly hear Alex's voice on a video Paul took at the dog kennels minutes before the murder. A video Alex swore he was not in. Now, his best friend says, oh, it's clearly him. But Alex swore he wasn't in the video,
Good question.
which he had to do
Cinderella.
because he swore he was not there that day. But that voice, his voice, put him at the crime scene. Then there was Shelley Smith, the caregiver for Alex's ailing mother. She said on the stand that Alec made a surprise visit that night, then came back later, pressuring her to lie about how long he had stayed. She also mentioned him carrying some kind of blue tarp or maybe a raincoat. That very item was later found covered in gunshot residue. Now, why is that important? There was no blood. There was nothing on his clothing. But she saw him carrying this blue item, and it was covered in gunshot residue. Now, Jeannie Sekiger, the CFO of Alec's former law firm, she explained how Alec had been secretly funneling client settlement funds into a fake account that he created under the name Forge, which he alone controlled. Now, isn't that interesting? Forge. Like forged signature.
Forging.
She's the one who confronted him about pilfering nearly, get this, $800,000 from his clients. Her testimony became the backbone of the prosecution's theory. Alec wasn't just lying, he was cornered.
You know what? They did not know it was more when she first went after him about this. They had no idea how bad it was until he wasn't there, and they started digging through all the records. And then the shock came upon them about how bad it actually was. Now, Cinderella, you got to have a good question there, because I don't remember what Buster's alibi was. Cinderella says, do we really know if Buster wasn't with his dad when this happened? Now, I don't know, because I don't remember his alibi, but we can always, go look it up. But we do know in the video, you can clearly hear his voice it's so distinctive. You can hear him saying to Bubba, come, talking to the dog. He cannot lie his way out of it. Well, think about this. He's a lawyer. He knows all of these things. He knows they're going to look at phone records. He knows they're going to ping these phones. He knows that they're going to be able to find. What made him think they were not going to investigate 100% and see that he was lying about all these different things? And Sled pointed it all out.
But look at all the shit he'd gotten away with up to that point.
That's true,
he'd gotten away with so much stuff. So I think with him, this was just one more thing that he was going to get away with.
Or so he thought. Thought. Okay.
Exactly.
And when the walls closed in, people died. Family members also took the stand, peeling back the polished veneer of a once powerful dynasty, revealing the family's cracks.
100%.
Marion Proctor,
100%.
Maggie's sister, testified about Alec and Maggie's marriage. She admitted that for the most part, they had a good relationship, but it wasn't perfect. Far from it. Years earlier, Maggie had confronted Alec about a suspected affair on his part, a betrayal that left a scar, even though they stayed together. Marion also revealed that Maggie was worried about Alec's opioid use, even nicknaming Paul Little Detective, because he kept an eye on his father's pill habits. I said, all of this bizarre logic, illogic.
Now think about what he just said, the little detective. Now, if you've ever known anybody that was truly addicted to some sort of drugs, we're gonna talk about, they weren't prescribed to him. He was just buying them from somebody. But anyway, they will do anything to get that drug. And he may have been mad at Paul because Paul kept telling on him or finding these drugs or saying, telling his mother, saying something to his mother. And he was just so angry with him about that and the boat wreck and everything else. I mean, people like that are very desperate to keep this going. He'd already been to, they talked about he'd been to several different types of rehabs, tried to do a at-home rehab to get off of it, and he was just never successful. So the family all knew he had this horrible drug problem. But I don't think it was 60 pills a day. As we discussed yesterday, he would have been dead.
No, there wasn't. There's no way. Yeah, there's no way.
Might seem more reasonable to somebody that was frying their brain with drugs. About a month before the murders, Paul discovered bags of pills in Alec's computer bag. You have to think that must have been a heavy burden for a young 20-something. And let's not forget, Paul allegedly had issues of his own with drinking, and we know that addiction can be considered hereditary. There's a huge hereditary component.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not alcohol to alcohol or drugs to drugs. It's the predisposition for an addictive type personality.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with a parent's addiction can create a role reversal where the child becomes a parent, the student becomes a teacher. It's just a complete flip of roles, forcing children into caregiver roles and leading to stress, anxiety, and family dynamics when you have to start parenting your own father. For Paul, trying to monitor his father's opioid use likely added to the emotional toll already weighing on their family. And Alec may have well thought, he knows more than I can afford for him to know, and he may have resented him for holding him to account. You can think of a family system like a wind chime, for example, that's got a lot of different parts to it. When one person in a family begins to change his or her behavior, that change will affect the entire family system. Think about it. You grab one of those chimes, pull it way out and let it go. It starts banging into every other chime that's hanging there. When one part in a hanging mobile or hanging wind chime moves, this affects all parts, but in different ways. And each part has to adjust to try to regain balance. This was a man known as Mr. Fix-It in the family. Alec was a patriarch. He was the provider, the father who always was there to bail Paul out of trouble, even if it meant taking others down. But all of this was a facade Alec used to hide the real him, the drug-addicted lying thief.
Okay.
And his opioid addiction apparently started after knee surgeries in the early 2000s. So think about that. This is across 20
long
years.
time.
And it spiraled into a severe dependency. He claimed to have eventually reached a point of consuming, get this, 60 pills a day, a habit that became increasingly draining and difficult to hide. Now, let's jump back to the testimony of Maggie's sister, Marion. What struck her as most strange was Alec's focus after the murders. While the rest of the family fretted that a killer was still on the loose, because remember, 2 different weapons, shotgun and a
Never
high-powered
found.
rifle, which people theorize Alec used to create the thought that there were multiple assailants. So his top priority still seemed to be clearing Paul's name from the 2019 boat crash. Well, wait a minute. Aren't there people out there trying to kill your family? Marion found that disconnect jarring. Paul was gone. Why was Alec still fixated on clearing his name? Now, I understand a father doesn't want people thinking badly about their deceased son, but what about the fact that there's a killer on the loose targeting your family? And then there was Buster, the surviving Murdaugh son. He took the stand too, for the defense. His fiery hair, a reminder of the signature trait the 3 Murdaugh men once shared, Buster remained loyal to his father, trying to help the man now accused of murdering his mother and little brother. He described Alec as being destroyed, heartbroken over the brutal murders. What kind of position did that put Buster in? What did he really think in his head? His mother and brother have been murdered. His father is standing trial. Nothing will ever be the same for him, no matter what happens. It's got to be a tremendous burden carrying the weight of a name once synonymous with power, now forever linked to scandal and loss. You have to wonder, why was Buster spared?
Yeah,
Well,
that's the
he wasn't at
question we're
Moselle that night, but still. However, unlike Paul and Maggie, Buster wasn't directly linked to the scandals threatening Alec's financial empire. Sparing Buster may have been an attempt to preserve Alec's family legacy and secure a potential life insurance payout, as seen in Alec's later failed suicide for hire scheme. I know, it's like you've got to have a dance card here. Wife is murdered. Paul is murdered. Buster is spared. Alec has a failed suicide attempt, apparently, which turns out not to be real. There's an insurance policy that could be collected, but who's there to collect it if not for Buster? Just when you thought this trial couldn't get any more like a Southern Gothic tragedy, a name hidden in the shadows, largely long forgotten, emerged. So who would that be? Well, Gloria Satterfield. Gloria had been the loyal family housekeeper for decades. Then one day back in 2018, she suffered a bad fall on the Murdaugh's Moselle estate, allegedly tripping on the front steps. She fell into a coma soon after and never regained consciousness, ultimately passing from traumatic brain injuries and complications. Now, interesting to note, Paul and Maggie were not the first to have suffered a deadly fate on that property. It's incredible that this woman's death had long been glossed over. Understand, Gloria wasn't just a Murdaugh hired hand. By all accounts, she was like a second mother to Paul. The two were incredibly close, and Paul even reportedly carried a photo of her in his wallet, a reminder of their bond. He apparently didn't even carry a photo of his own family, but he had a picture of her. That speaks volumes. Yet when Gloria died, her cause of death was ruled natural. No autopsy.
Okay, what do you mean natural? She had 12 broken ribs and a head injury. How is that natural? I mean, why in the world did the medical examiner in that town, why would they do that? Everybody knows that there's no way. And how did he sue his own insurance company on behalf of this family from a death from a natural cause? See, none of that makes sense. Something's so wrong with that, because they must have had to go back and change this death certificate. There's no way it could have been left like that. That is absurd. Oh my God. Here we go.
And the true story about the betrayal after her death remained largely secret. But now it was coming to light. Alec, always one for hatching criminal schemes, convinced her sons, Tony and Brian, to sue him for wrongful death.
I agree, Leslie.
Since her quote-unquote fall happened on his property. You heard me right. She fell on his property, lapsed into a coma, and ultimately died. Alec goes to her sons, Tony and Brian, and said, "Sue me for wrongful death." Now, why would he do that? Well,
because he knew.
I'll tell you. He urged the brothers to hire Corey Fleming, his close friend and former college roommate, as their attorney, promising them he would make sure they were taken care of financially. But behind the scenes, Alec and Corey Fleming had a diabolical plan to divert the settlement funds for their own gain. And if the name Corey Fleming rings a bell, it should. Corey Fleming was the same attorney Alec urged Paul's friend, Connor Cook, to hire after the drunken boat crash in 2019. At the time, Connor thought it was strange that Alec was pushing his own lawyer on him, not realizing the two were in cahoots from the start. And as you might expect, the promises Alex made to Gloria's sons proved to be nothing but a pack of lies. He was no better than a snake oil salesman. Alec and Corey went on to pocket the entire staggering $4.3 million insurance payout. How much went to those boys? Not one single red cent. But justice would have its day. Tony Satterfield took the witness stand during Alec's trial, and after he spoke his truth, Gloria became much more than a tragic footnote, much more than a forgotten death, much more than a method for Alec to get 4.3.
Okay, listen to this, y'all. So, ex-lawyer Corey Fleming, this guy right here, you have to go play in the snow, oh Lord, was barred. He lost his license in South Carolina over all of this, and he should have. Thank God they did something about him. The former attorney and associate of convicted killer Alex Murdaugh, who pleaded guilty to various state charges, have been officially disbarred by the South Carolina Supreme Court. The former South Carolina attorney, Corey Fleming, pled guilty in August to 23 charges, ranging from breach of trust to fraudulent intent to money laundering, computer crimes, and criminal conspiracy. So here's something you got to wonder, though. How many other schemes was he involved with? Did he and Alex cook up together that they both were involved in? You got to wonder. Fleming was sentenced to 13 years, 10 months in prison based on multiple individual indictments that carried possible penalties between the 20 years and up to 20 years, and the South Carolina Attorney General's office had talked about this. The charges stem from his accusations that he conspired with disbarred Alec Murdaugh to take money from wrongful death suits. You see, okay, not only Gloria Satterfield, but there were some other things that he also participated in. That is sick. Just sick. All right, let's go listen some more.
million.
Wow.
She served as a symbol to the court of just how far Alec would go to manipulate, deceive, and betray others for his own benefit. Now, needless to say, the circumstances of Gloria Satterfield's death, well, they're certainly suspicious and remain shrouded in mystery. In 2021, SLED, South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, reopened the investigation after information came to light during the broader probe into Maggie and Paul's murders, despite Alec later admitting in court filings that he invented the critical facts surrounding her fatal fall, including the claim that she tripped over the family dogs. To this day, the true circumstances of her death remain a haunting, unresolved chapter in the Murdaugh saga. Now think about that. She is kind of...
You know who knew what happened to her? I bet you Paul knew exactly what happened to her. And I bet you that he never wanted Paul to open his mouth about what happened to Gloria. And I bet you that's why he carried her picture in his wallet. You know, Paul may have had, he may have had some of the same traits that his dad had. We don't know that. But he may have also had empathy. We just don't know. Anyway, I think that Paul did know that.
Of an afterthought. Was she murdered? Was she pushed down those steps? Was she hit in the back of the head and then placed on the step? Who knows what happened? But it hardly makes a headline. $4.3 million were manipulated out of that situation, and not a penny went to her family. It didn't even make the headlines. While the revelations about the stolen Satterfield settlement sent shockwaves through the courtroom, nothing could prepare viewers for the jaw-dropping moment when Alec Murdaugh himself took the stand, facing his accusers and trying to salvage what remained of his tarnished image. Could there be anything left? And if that's the case, what does he have to lose? It was a risky move, but one of his attorneys, Dick Harpootlian, said it was necessary to confront the damning evidence against him, especially the cell phone video that placed him at the scene just moments before the murders. Alec wanted the jury to hear his side directly, hoping to seize control of the narrative and cast doubt on the prosecution's case. Now, again, if we're talking about a narcissist here, and I've never diagnosed him, never met him, never evaluated him, never done any testing, never had the opportunity. I can just tell you, if I did, on the short list of considerations I would be looking to verify or eliminate would be narcissistic personality disorder. But a narcissist, they see things through their point of view and no one else's. So they're going to get up and tell their story and be stunned if you don't buy it. Be stunned if you don't believe it. Because they just think, I'm telling you, how could you not believe it? So I believe that he believed that he was actually going to get up there and convince everybody that he was right and they were wrong. He has to deal with these things. And first, the kennel. He admitted he lied about being at the dog kennels. How could he not? He's on video. You don't see him, but you hear his voice. Paul's best friend says, well, yeah, that's him. So he admitted he lied about being at the dog kennels on the night of the murders. And
let me tell y'all real quick, because, they talk about the Satterfield children not getting that $3.8 million. But guess what did happen? After it was all said and done and everything had been cleared and he's going to jail, all that, they recovered $7.5 million. But it was not paid from the Murdaugh estate. Imagine that. It was from these separate actions, not directly from the Murdaugh assets, that these children, the Satterfield children, actually finally got the money. Isn't that horrible?
How could he not? There's cell phone video that you hear him. He blamed his deception about his whereabouts on what he called his opioid paranoia, revealing a pattern of self-preservation and manipulation. It's kind of like, I lied until you caught me. Now I'll tell you the truth. I just lied because I was paranoid. But nonetheless, you were at the crime scene. Why he lied was important to him, but I don't think it was important to anybody else, just that he lied. He also seesawed between acting remorseful and being defiant, as a narcissist would. It's like, how can you ask me those questions? He admitted to financial fraud, but denied the murders, adamantly maintaining his innocence. Now, let me talk to you about that for a minute. There's something called modified mea culpa. That's when a witness can get on the stand and admit to serious misdeeds, things that you think nobody would ever admit to this. Sometimes a jury will say, wow, He was very honest about that, much to his detriment. He admitted to fraud, stealing from his clients. He destroyed himself on that. So if he's going to admit to all that, why would he lie about these other things? He's destroying himself. Well, why would he tell the truth about that and lie about this? Well, because those things are not actionable. He's not on trial for stealing. He's not on trial for fraud. He's not on trial for misappropriation of funds. He's not on trial for embezzlement. He can admit to every one of those things, and he's not being tried for that. So when the jury gets back in the room, they're not going to be asked, do you find him guilty of fraud? He can admit to every one of those things because he's not being charged with those things. So you can buy credibility by admitting to things that seem like, wow, a witness wouldn't admit to these things, and then lie about something else, unless you understand he's not in danger in this trial for admitting to those misdeeds. So you can buy credibility. Now, does he have to deal with those later? Yeah, but that's another day. Right now, you're fighting for your life. You'll deal with those things later. I can tell you from a trial science standpoint, he was trying to buy credibility by seeming very honest about bad deeds. So people would say, he's going to admit
He
that.
must not be guilty.
Why lie about the other? So I'm going to believe him when he says he didn't do this. And then there's the addiction defense. He admitted to a 20-year opioid addiction, describing it as a crippling dependency that clouded his judgment and caused his erratic behavior. He claimed his addiction led him to rehab in the past, framing it as a root cause of poor decisions and distrust of law enforcement.
Oh, please.
So if you look at his interviews and say, well, he doesn't seem very honest there, you can say, well, I didn't trust them. I was paranoid. What if they found out I was an opioid addict? Again, modified mea culpa. Then when he cracks under pressure, the prosecution's cross-examination revealed inconsistencies that undermined his credibility and reinforced this narcissistic master manipulator narrative. But this narcissism, and again, I haven't diagnosed him, but I'm just telling you based on what I've seen, limited as it is, I predicted at the time, he's taken the stand. There's no way when you think you're the smartest person in the room, you can sit over there and let other people tell your story. He had to try to control the narrative. He was accustomed to running the trial, not sitting back and being a passenger back in row 12 of the bus and somebody else doing the driving. Couldn't happen. He's too narcissistic for that, too much of a controller for that. Just like his botched insurance fraud scheme where he tried to stage his own death to manipulate the outcome. Taking the stand was just another attempt to seize control of his fate. He just couldn't take no for an answer. He's going to testify. He's going to talk to that jury and win them over and get his way when the stakes are life or death. He's thinking, I'm either going to spend the rest of my life in prison or I'm going to get up there and do the closing argument of my lifetime. I'm going to make them have compassion for me, feel sorry for me, understand why I'm the way I am. And maybe they'll put me in a mental institution until I can manipulate some psychiatrist that I'm better now.
I can see
He
him
thought
doing that.
he knew how to turn on the emotions and the charm, and he thought that this would all work in his favor. It was layered, it was emotional, he was controlled at times, but he was not reading the room. I think he came across as desperate, and I don't think that he was having the impact on that jury he thought he did. I don't think he was withstanding cross the way he thought he was. And then closing arguments. One last chance to shape the narrative. Prosecutor Creighton Waters, well, he certainly didn't pull any punches. He said this wasn't just a financial storm, it was a hurricane of accountability. He went on to call Alec a family annihilator, a man who chose murder to escape an avalanche of consequences for his crimes. He basically said he used them as a distraction. Look over here, look over here, don't look over here. Look over here. And that he was willing to kill his own family to gain sympathy and distract them from what was really going on. Meanwhile, defense attorney Jim Griffin tried to pull the jury back from the edge. His voice cracked as he pleaded, yes, Alec lied, but that doesn't make him a killer, implying there's a big difference between lying and killing. Again, he pointed to the lack of physical evidence, no blood, no weapon, no smoking gun. This is still America, he said. Don't let them make him the face of all your anger. And then just 3 hours later, the verdict.
3 hours.
The jury told Alec Murdaugh to rise. The room fell silent. guilty. He was found guilty of murdering Maggie, guilty of murdering Paul, guilty of using a weapon to commit both crimes. Alex stood still, no tears, no visible shock, just a man who once ruled the courtroom and was now sentenced in it. No family reached for him. No hands on his back. No comforting.
Yeah.
Just a faint echo of a legacy destroyed. The Murdaugh name would go down in history, but not for admirable reasons. You would think the story would end with that verdict, but it did not. The very next day, during sentencing, Alec Murdaugh finally spoke.
Okay. Oh, look what I just did. Sorry about that. Let me go put that back on because I wanted to see Buster next time. But hang on a minute. We'll just go back over there. I don't know. Anyway, let me go back over here. Well, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna watch Buster's interview, his exclusive interview right here. Hang on a second.
I think a lot of people will wonder right off the bat what made.
Okay, all right. I wanted to show you where Buster is now. So he gives this interview because we know what Alex did. We know the kind of asshole he is, the monster he is, and we knew exactly what he was going to try to pull at the end. Because he, again, is just like all the rest of the family annihilators and people and the narcissists, the psychopaths, and the criminals, right? The worst of the worst right there. So let's listen to Buster because Buster, a lot of people realize that Buster is sort of like, he's kind of like he is a victim as well. No matter what happened, no matter what he did or did not do, he wasn't there when this happened, but he is still a victim. He's the remaining child. He's the one who's out here trying to still live, but living with knowing that he is Alex Murdaugh's son. So here we go.
Made you decide that you want to speak out about what has happened?
Sure. One of the main reasons I wanted to do this is because there's been an awful lot of, negative publicity talking about, my family and also about myself. And I just want to be able to give a truer perspective and let people understand that some of the things that are out there might not be exactly the truth.
You're going to hear some of what was going on in Alex Murdaugh's life leading up to that day. Stuff that happened that very day, stuff that was leading up, the perfect storm that was gathering, much like the storms that are coming outside today.
I wanted the jury to really understand that this was all coming to a head and it was falling apart.
When you listen to the prosecution, they built the argument that killing Paul and Maggie would buy him even more time. It would turn sympathy on him at a moment when a lot was about to come down. What do you think about that?
I was thinking that I don't know what or how bad everything was going to get or how bad everything had gotten for him. But I do know that I do not think that his justification and his out of whatever storm he concocted was to kill my mother and brother. I remember we approached the main entrance to Moselle. We can see all the police cars and the lights shining through the trees.
I can't even imagine you get to your home where your family lives and you've spent all this time and it's crawling with law enforcement. Did you go over to the kennels at all?
No, I did not. People did tell me not to go down there. The crime scene had been cut off and they sent everybody over to the house.
And what'd you say to your dad?
I didn't say anything to my father. I walked inside and I saw him and it was utter silence. It was a big embrace. He immediately broke down crying. I started crying and that was what that was. I mean, it's difficult to relive these tough circumstances.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now. Oh, let's see. You know what else is interesting?
This defendant has full.
Yeah. I like to hear the prosecutor's statement about it as well. Yeah, if Buster is innocent in all of this, I do feel sorry for him. I do, because he is a remaining child, just like, these other kids. And they also have survivor's guilt. I mean, think about this. Oh, okay, yes, Stephen, yes, I agree with that, Sprinkle Donut. I absolutely do too. But he also is dealing with survivor's guilt, and that is real. Because, okay, just like my other children, they also deal with that survivor's guilt. So if you have a child and you've lost a child and you have other children and you watch them and you listen to them and they need help too. They end up needing counseling because they end up with this survivor's guilt. It's so real amongst brothers and sisters, So I hope that he did get some kind of mental counseling or help with that because it is real. But I like the prosecutor here. And I want to hear him talk about this for just a few minutes. I'm going to try to keep this right under 2 hours, and but I wanted to hear a little bit of what he has to say too. So here we go. Who is this? Is it not Fox? Is it News Nation?
Everyone who thought they knew who he was. I asked you to return a verdict of guilty against the defendant, Richard Alexander Murdaugh, for the murder of his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul. Don't let him fool you too.
It's Ann Emerson, and if you've been watching the new Hulu series Death in the Family, then you've seen the storm surrounding Alec Murdaugh, the lies, the fall, chaos. I was in that South Carolina courtroom, and Prosecutor Creighton Waters, the man who took Alec Murdaugh down, listen to what he says really happened behind the scenes at the trial of the century.
Creighton, I want to first ask you about, there's some renewed interest right now in the Murdaugh case.
It's news to the Murdaughs. Long may we live.
Amen. Have you watched the Hulu special?
No, I haven't watched any of that. I mean, again, I've been traveling the country, speaking to different groups. I'm still doing some documentaries here, but don't really have too much interest in watching a fictionalized, dramatized account. We lived this thing for real, and that was good enough.
I have to say, I watched it, and I don't know if it was PTSD or therapy that I was kind of going through as I was watching it, but it was a little bit of both. And I cannot even imagine what would go through your head watching this right now.
I don't typically go back and watch those shows. We still have a lot to do. We still have a lot going on with the case, with various companion cases. And believe it or not, there's other bad guys out there we're trying to catch as well.
The amount of time we spent was just a fraction. When I say we, I mean me sitting there listening, even all of the hours and hours that I put into the documentary podcast that I worked on, fraction of what you did.
Well, it was a lot, and my team spent a whole lot of time on this. I got this case just a few days before the side of the road happened, and of course, I get this case. I already had situational awareness of what was going on, but I'm trying to, wrap my head around how I'm going to lead this effort. And then with just a few days, the law firm announces, of course, that he's been terminated for allegedly stealing from his clients. And I knew right then, and I told my team, I said, we're going to have to focus on that. These things could be related, but even if they aren't, if in fact this powerful lawyer was using his power and his influence and his family name and all of that to abuse the judicial system, that in and of itself was something that we needed to explore and expose. And so we immediately started to work very hard on that. A lot of, at the very early stages, there were a lot of people, victims that I talked to, that were very skeptical that anything would ever be done. And we had to assure them. I told more than one, I promise you we will see this thing through to the end. And ultimately we did so. But it was a whirlwind investigation. And, ultimately all of that sort of led to July of 22, when I presented the case to the chief of SLED and to the attorney general and said, hey, we believe that it's time to also indict the murderers. And, I wrote a theme right then for that presentation, The Gathering Storm. And how all of these things sort of dovetail together. And that became the theme of the case.
And it really played out too, because I remember sitting next to John Monk, who is the state newspaper reporter, sitting next to him. And as the clouds gathered over that courtroom and the gathering storm actually hit, I couldn't believe the drama of that moment. I remember John looking at me and goes, this could not be more Shakespearean if you tried.
Well, yeah, again, that had been my theme for 7 months. And then as I'm giving my opening statement, I can see the clouds darken outside. I can, hear the trees start to rustle.
And you're going to hear some of what was going on in Alex Murdaugh's life leading up to that day. Stuff that happened that very day, stuff that was leading up, a perfect storm that was gathering, much like the storms that are coming outside today. Listen for that evidence. Listen to that gathering storm that all came to a head on June 7th, 2021, the day the evidence will show he killed Maggie and Paul.
So that was, it did seem like in the moment when I was giving that opening statement, a little bit of providence or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, you weren't alone in that. That's what it felt like. It felt like there was a lot of ghosts right behind you. But I wanted to ask you, one thing that I asked Attorney Dick Harpootlian, who was the defense attorney, of course, for Alec Murdaugh, if there is a killer out there that you keep telling me, that there is another killer out there, not just an empty chair theory, but that there's somebody else out there that you're actually hunting. What do you say to that there could be someone else that could have been involved in this?
Well, again, we as prosecutors have a very high and strong obligation to seek justice. And, in this particular case, I think you saw it play out on the stand, the extremely exhaustive investigation that was done. And I will just say this, that if we have evidence that somebody committed a crime, then I think, it's pretty clear that we're not scared to bring charges. So I'll just leave it at that.
I don't know if we ever got a clear answer of why Stephen Smith homicide investigation was brought up and re-examined right after the double murders.
Well, I think that's something, first of all, that I can't really comment any further on because, things are ongoing. I will say that cold cases can be very difficult. But this was, what happened to Stephen was, I think, just something that had happened in the community. And then when all this drama happened with Alec and Maggie and Paul, it just caused people again to look back at that issue that still, bothered a lot of people, that there hadn't been a resolution. And so I think that's where, that caused that to kind of go to the forefront again, but ultimately, other than to say that we're constantly looking closely at anything we can, I can't comment any further on that.
No. Yeah, it's still not resolved, is it? I mean, and like you said, it's a multiple layered, prosecution, investigation, trial. Everything about this was multi-layered. There was no simple. That was the whole point. Was that this was just a hornet's nest full of issues all the way through.
Well, it really was. I mean, truth is stranger than fiction. I think that when I look back on all of this, if I had taken this and decided to fly to LA and pitch this as a movie or a series or something like that, probably the producers have been like, you need to dial it back a little bit. We're losing our suspension of disbelief at this point, because it is a very multi-layered thing. It is an extremely unique story. And I think that's kind of why it also wrapped in some of the other stories as well, as part of this larger narrative that just really has gripped, obviously, the state and the nation as well, and the world. I still get emails from all over the world to this day.
I still get comments too. And what is the comment that you still look at and think, that I lived through that? Like, what is it that they say to you that just really still resonates with you?
Well, the one thing I've really enjoyed, and I'll be leaving later this week to go do this, is, going to prosecutors' conferences and bar conventions and things like that, and giving legal training, and having judges and lawyers, young lawyers, law enforcement come up to me and say that that this whole process kind of really re-enthused their belief in the system, and the idea, particularly as it related to the financial crimes and his, abuse. Accountability. There can be accountability for powerful members of the profession, and so I hear that a lot. And I think that's a big reason why this case, in the larger sense, really gripped the nation. And I think it gave. I've heard over and over again that the efforts that were done there have given people hope about the system, and have enthused them to go out and fight hard battles as well.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna have to come back to that another day, because we're gonna get. Because it's kind of a long interview that she does, but I enjoy watching her, and she did a really good job of covering this case. But I wanted to tell y'all a little bit about his appeal that's going on. Now, I do have the appeal, and I have the answer to the appeal, and it really kind of all goes back to the clerk, the county clerk there. But let me ask you this, Gall. Okay, hear me out before you say anything. Is it possible that his family or him somehow got her to participate in making these statements and all of these things to try to make sure that he got a new trial? I know that sounds a little far-fetched, but a lot of this appeal is based on what she said, what she had done, and this book. So that's just the question I'm going to ask. Leave comments if you want to. But I've always wondered if there was some kind of connection there, because they knew they were losing this trial, when it was going on. But let me read y'all this right quick. So, Alec Murdaugh is appealing his double murder conviction with the South Carolina Supreme Court, and it's scheduled to hear the oral arguments on February the 11th, 2026. I wish we could listen to that happen. I would love to listen to this. It is focusing on the claims of jury tampering by former county clerk Becky Hill, and the mishandling of the evidence by investigators like SLED, and the introduction of his financial crimes as a motive in the original trial. His legal team argues that these issues deprived him of a fair trial, while the state contends he is obviously guilty, just leading to an ongoing legal battle over whether a new trial should be granted or not. Now, the key parts to this appeal, of course, is the jury tampering, the allegations that Becky Hill, influenced these jurors. The investigative misconduct claims that SLED mishandled Maggie's phone, potentially losing crucial location data that could have supported Murdaugh's innocence, and that the critical DNA evidence was ignored. And then the prejudicial evidence. Argument that evidence of his financial crimes was wrongly allowed as a motive for murder, tainting the jury's perception. In the current status, they're going to have the oral arguments on February the 11th, 2026. The final briefs, both sides have submitted their final legal arguments with the state opposing the appeal and highlighting Murdaugh's guilt. Okay. The previous ruling, a lower court judge had previously denied a new trial in January of 2024, leading to this current appeal to the state's highest court. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. And I so wish we could watch it. That's probably not going to happen. In fact, it just never happens, but it would be good if it could. But I do plan on, let me get rid of this. Let me share this. I do plan on getting more information and getting my hands on some more of the appeal information, because I enjoy reading the appeals. It's very interesting because you get to see a lot of the things that you didn't necessarily see or didn't necessarily hear before in the trial, because it's all laid out in black and white. So I will be happy to read that appeal and talk to you guys about it. That would be so much fun. In fact, I think we might do that. But I know Sprinkle and I have other things we want to do too. But I just thought that, let me tell you something else that happened really quick. Diane Downs, right? We all know her. Okay, I had made a little TikTok video and I used the term Diane Downs as a hashtag. Do you know that TikTok took that down and said that was a violation of their community terms because they used Diane Downs as a hashtag? My God, this is a leading. She's being talked about everywhere. What do you mean? I could not believe the ridiculousness of that. But anyway, I just remembered that. I was like, that is just crazy. That's crazy. How can you do that? I'm going to check and see right now, because we should be hearing about Diane. I don't think she's going to get a parole. I don't. But we should be hearing really, really soon whether she's been granted parole or not, because I think it's been 30 days, right? So let me see if there's something new on here right now. This is a month ago.
How many times do people hashtag Gypsy Rose?
I know. And TikTok didn't find anything wrong with that.
That's crazy.
I thought, how can you be so? Why are you censoring me like that? That's crazy. Anyway,
that is nuts.
Okay, so let me see if there's been any movement on her appeal so far. So that was then. Nope. Okay, there's been nothing new filed. They've not announced anything new about her appeal that she had a month or so ago. She had her appeal hearing. So anyway, so we're gonna probably let y'all go today. Thank you for coming by, and as we always say, hey, stop by whenever you can. Stay as long as you can. Go watch it whenever you can. It's okay. We just enjoy visiting with you guys anytime we can. So. And I always appreciate everybody that comes in when we're live. That's always so nice of y'all. But anyway, be careful out there. Take care of yourself, Leslie. Stay out of the snow. We don't need you falling and hurting yourself. We don't need a broken foot. Let's behave. Anyway, and what do I always say, Sprinkle? What's the last thing I always tell people?
Hug your babies.
That is damn right. So we will probably see y'all maybe tomorrow if we can. I'm not sure yet because I just have a lot of other things I got to get done. But we'll make a post about it. But thank you guys for coming in. Please take care of yourself.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Bye, guys.